Hey everyone, it's Andy here. I wanted to just give a quick update today on what's happening with the pandemic unemployment extensions, including the $300 benefit payment, and really looking at a potential way it could be extended via a Biden executive order or at least through a Democratic controlled Congress. As always, if you like what you hear, please hit the like button below, and for ongoing videos on this topic, you can always hit the subscribe button as well. So just to be clear on what I'm covering, you can see this diagram showing you all the unemployment benefit programs, the pandemic enhanced ones that are federally funded on this one page here, right? It's on the top. I'm starting with all the stimulus packages. So you had the CARES Act back in 2020, then it got the COVID relief bill, the Biden rescue plan, that was the ARPA. And then what I'm talking about is the things in orange, which is the extension from the beginning of September to the end of the year potentially. So what I'm looking at as an extension to both the stimulus package, but to the PUE extension, the PUA extension, and the $300 extra payment. I don't think the MEUC, which is the Mixed Earner Unemployment Program, can be extended. Now, I've covered a lot of these programs in earlier updates, and I'll put some links below the video. But I just want to focus on the extension that's in orange that could be funded through an executive order using the existing American Rescue Plan funds. That was a huge $1 trillion plus package, and so there's a lot of funding that has been unused, and I want to discuss a bit about that in the upcoming videos. So that's really about using the remaining stimulus funds, which I believe does provide a pretty straightforward way for the funding to be used and extend benefits if there is the political capital to do so. I'll also discuss a bit later what happened to some of those states that opted out early from the benefits before the September 6th end date that's currently in place. And then obviously I want to talk about the extra $300 in retroactive back payments that could happen if the benefits are extended until the end of 2022. So firstly, just to show that this can be funded, as a reminder, the American Rescue Plan did allocate $350 billion towards state and local territories for emergency funding with COVID-19 and bringing back jobs. A lot of this has not been spent yet by a lot of the states. So as you can see here, this is from the U.S. Department of Treasury. These funds are still available and still can be used. They're already been appropriated or funded by Congress. So if you look at what the objectives are for that 350 billion fund, I'll show you the detailed readings quickly. But just to touch it here, all of these supporting the urgent response, replacing lost revenue, supporting immediate economic stabilization, any of these categories, you could tie an extension of unemployment benefits to, right? Because clearly, if you extend unemployment benefits, it will allow people to stay home and potentially not spread the virus more. If you support, it can also support economic stabilization for an area or a country or a city if you allow more unemployment. And then obviously it'll also ensure that people who potentially lower income folks who are at risk of losing jobs if shops have to shut or businesses have to slow down, unemployment will help those people higher than it would help people who probably have high income jobs and lots of savings, right? So what this is showing you is that the funding that's allocated can easily be justified to go for additional unemployment extensions. And this is more of the detailed language here, and this is what I covered in the previous two slides. And you can see highlighted here, right? So this is the state and local fiscal recovery fund, the FRF. Now it is owned by the states, so an executive order would probably just be an order to allow states to do it. So some states who have already inclined towards it, and especially Democratic leaning states may be able to extend unemployment benefits on this behalf of use these funds. But the legalese behind this is probably too long for this video, but I'm sure at the White House there's different ways for them to reappropriate these funds while still meeting the objective of the funding. So it allows them to keep that in place without having legal challenges for that as well. And Trump did the same thing with the LWA. He used FEMA, which is the Federal Emergency Management Administration funding for this to create that 6 weeks of extra unemployment while Congress was getting the approval done last year. So there is already precedent for that. So I think I've established that there is the funding for the extending unemployment benefits. Now, it's only going to require the political will, political capital to make it happen. But given that Trump did it last year, and if the economy does deteriorate, now again, if the economy suddenly gets good and Delta goes away, there's going to be a harder case to make in the court of political opinion. But there is funding there. The ARPA stimulus that was initially funded, I think only about 50% of it actually being spent. And they're already talking about an infrastructure bill using unused funds for that bill. So it's not very difficult to see this could be extended to unemployment benefits. So in terms of states who opted out early, so they still have opted out of these federal, the PUA, the PEUC, or the 300 Boost FPUC program. They will have to reapply if they want to come back in for these extended benefits. They'll lose coverage for the weeks they were out, like some ended in June, July, and so if they come back in, they'll only be claimants in those states will only be eligible for benefits from that time, but they can opt back in. So the good news is, even those states who opted out early, they can get back into these federal programs if the economy worsens and there's extra funding there. And I think it'll be politically tough not to go back in these programs if unemployment does drop. Now, again, the argument was that unemployment went was causing people not to go back to work, but if the jobs aren't there, then unemployment benefits will be needed to keep the economy sustained. And ultimately, the $300 payments would resume. Now, again, it depends when this executive order is signed. There could be a gap between payments, like the LWO. There was a small gap for a month that there were no payments. But if this is approved by Biden, in the next few weeks, it'll happen pretty quickly. It's not something that'll take long because it can be done by executive order or even by party lines if the Democrats want to get it through Senate and Congress as an amendment. But I think the executive order will be the fastest way, and these 300 payments will just continue because states have already got the system set up, so it just happens very quickly. States that have to reapply for the programs may take a bit longer, but if it's approved, this can happen really quickly because the funding is there, the systems are there, and it's just about getting it signed. And then obviously, any delays, they will be back pay, all that kind of stuff. So I'll keep monitoring this to see what happens, if there is any more news on this. But I think this is probably the biggest chance of it happening through executive order and the funding to go to the end of the year. Now, again, it depends on several factors: the economy, the legal is behind this, if there's the will to get unemployment extended for the people, because there will be pushbacks from various business lobby groups that this is keeping people from going back to work. So this is not a done deal by any means, but please stay tuned and subscribe to get the latest updates.